All right, Unit 5, Learning Target 2, Solving Radical Equations. So when we talk about solving radical equations, when we solve and take an even root, you should have two answers, a plus or a minus, okay? So when we do the square root of something, we always get a plus or minus answer. So let's say if I took the square root of 9, my answer would be a positive and a negative 3. That's because 3 squared is 9, and also negative 3 squared, so negative 3 times negative 3 also gives me a positive 9. So that is why we get that positive and negative answer, okay? An odd root would only have one answer, either a positive or a negative. So when I talk about 2 cubed, that gives me 8, okay? Negative 2 cubed will also give me a negative 8. So if I had the cube root of 8, that gives me a positive 2. But if I had the cube root of negative 8, that would give me a negative 2, okay? So 2 times 2 times 2 would give me 8. If I did negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, negative 2 times negative 2 gives me a positive 4, times a negative 2 will give me a negative 8, okay? So either a positive or a negative, not both. Extraneous solution is a solution that does not satisfy the equation. Okay, so we'll talk more about this as we go along. It says solve and check for extraneous solutions. So when I have x to the 5th equals 243, well, I can solve this by taking the 5th root of each side, okay? If I took the 5th root of 243 and broke that down to 3 and 81, 81 breaks down into 9 and 9, and 9 and 9 breaks down to 3 and 3. So because it's the 5th root, I'm looking for a group of 5. You can see right here that I have 5 of them. So my answer would be x equals 3. It's an odd root, so I have a positive answer because what was inside the root was positive, okay? So x equals 3 would be your answer. You would have to check for an extraneous solution by taking 3 and plugging it back in here. So 3 to the 5th power will equal 243, which satisfies our equation. Example 2, I have 6x cubed equals negative 1,296. So to solve this radical equation, I need to start by dividing by 6 on both sides. I'm trying to get the x by itself, so I would get x cubed equals negative 216. Oh, not a square root yet, just negative 216, okay? Now to get rid of x cubed, I need to cube root it, okay? So just like to get rid of a squared, we square root it. It's the same kind of thing. To get rid of a cubed, we cube root it. So if I cube root 216, that would break down into 72 and 3. 72 breaks down into 8 and 9. 9 breaks down into 3 and 3. 8 breaks down into 4 and 2. 4 breaks down into 2 and 2. So I have a group of 3s right here, and I have a group of 2s right there. So I'm bringing out a 3 and a 2 to multiply them. So 3 times 2 gives me 6. And it is going to be negative, actually, because it is a negative 216 on the inside, to give us our final answer of x equals negative 6. All right, now when we actually talk about equations, so I have x minus 4 squared equals 81. To get rid of a squared, I have to square root it, okay? And what we do to one side, we always do to the other side. So the square root of 81 is 9. It's a perfect square. This square root cancels out my squared, so I get x minus 4. Okay, here's the case. Remember, when we square root a number, it always gives us a plus and a minus answer. So because it does this, you need to make two equations. You need to make x minus 4 equals a positive 9, and x minus 4 equals a negative 9. You need to solve both of them for x so you can have two answers, okay? If I need to add 4 to both of them, x9 plus 4 will give me 13, and negative 9 plus 4 will give me a negative 5. So two answers. Now we need to check for extraneous solutions. So basically what I'm going to do is take these two answers and plug them in for x. So start with 13 minus 4 squared equals 81. Okay, 13 minus 4 squared gives me 9 squared. 9 squared equals 81. Yes, so that will work out. And then I would do negative 5 minus 4 squared equals 81. Negative 5 minus 4 gives me a negative 9. Negative 9 squared also equals a positive 81, so they both work. So I have two answers, x equals 13 and x equals negative 5. All right, looking at example 4 now. I have x plus 12 cubed equals 21. So and now I'm going to have to cube root both sides. Okay, so the cube root cancels out my cubed. I get x plus 12. And the cube root of 21, so can I break 21 down? No, it breaks down into 3 and 7, and that's it. So I'm going to leave it as the cube root of 21, okay? Again, if it doesn't simplify, just leave it as is, but I still need to solve the equation. So to solve the equation, all I have to do is subtract 12 from both sides, okay? Because there's already the cube root of 21 there, I'm just going to put my negative 12 in front, plus the cube root of 21, and that would be my final answer. X equals negative 12 plus cube root of 21. Okay, moving on to example 5. So when we're solving radical equations, okay, and we have the radical in the equation, you need to isolate the radical, just like we isolate the x in an equation before we solve for x, okay? So to isolate the radical, I need to move my 8 to the other side by subtracting 8 from both sides, okay? I would get the square root of 5x plus 1 equals 2 minus 8 to give me a negative 6. It's a square root, so I am going to square both sides, okay? I would get 5x plus 1, okay, cancels out. And then negative 6 squared, negative 6 times negative 6 gives me a positive 36. Okay, now I'm solving for x by subtracting 1 from both sides. Cancels out, I get 5x equals 35. Okay, divide by 5, you get x equals 7. Okay, now I need to check for an extraneous solution. So I'm going to take my 7 and I'm going to plug it back into this equation. So the original equation here, I'm doing the square root of 5 times 7 plus 1 plus 8 equals 2. So 5 times 7 will give me 35 plus 1. Still have everything else. 35 plus 1 gives me 36. Square root of 36 is 6. Okay, so 6 plus 8. Does that equal 2? 6 plus 8 is 14. So no, that does not equal 2. So I have no solution. And this is why you always need to check for extraneous solutions. So 7, x equals 7 here, is your extraneous solution. You'll see that labeled as ES. Okay? All right. Example 6 here. I have the cube root of x plus 40 equals -5. So I am going to cubed both sides. That cancels out my cube root. I get x plus 40 equals -125. Subtract 40. I get x equals 165 negative. Okay, now I need to take this and plug it back into my original equation to solve and make sure it's not an extraneous solution. So the cube root of -165 plus 40, I need to make sure that equals -5. -165 plus 40 is going to give me a -125. The cube root of -125 is -5. So that works out. So x equals -165 is a solution, okay? If you get confused about the cube root of something, you can do the factor tree. If you look up at the earlier problem, I did -5 times -5 times -5. Okay, I cubed it. That gave me the answer of -125, which tells me that -5 is a perfect cube. Okay. Example 7. So now I have the square root of 4 minus 11x equals x minus 2. I have the square root and I need to get rid of that. Okay. It is isolated already. So because it's isolated, I need to go ahead and square both sides. Now this becomes a little bit more work. I need to square this entire thing on the right side. So I'm going to actually have to multiply it all the way out. Okay. So if I squared this left side, I just get 4 minus 11x. If I square this side, I have 2 of x minus 2. And I'm going to multiply it all the way through. So x times x gives me x squared. X times -2 gives me -2x. -2 times x gives me -2x. And -2 times -2 gives me a +4. Combining like terms, okay? When you have an x squared here, okay? That means you need to combine all the like terms and set the entire equation equal to 0 because we're going back to factoring. I'm just going to go ahead and combine these two real quick. Okay, so now I'm going to move this to the right side. Okay, I'm going to do that by subtracting 4. So I subtract 4, that cancels both of those out. I add 11x. Cancels that out. So I get 0 on this side. I get x squared. -4 plus 11x will give me +7x. Okay. I have x squared plus 7x. What is my greatest common factor? So what do both of these terms have in common? Right there, an x. So I'm factoring out an x to leave me with x plus 7. So I have two answers here. I'm setting both of these x's equal to 0. So I can solve. So if I took this x and set equal to 0, my answer is x equals 0. If I took this and set equal to 0, x plus 7 equals 0. Okay, subtracting 7 on both sides, I get x equals -7. Okay, so right now I have two solutions. I need to take both these solutions and plug them back in to the original. Okay, so if I did that, let's start with our 0. I have the square root of 4 minus 11x. Well, plugging in 0 for x. Equals x minus 2. 11 times 0 gives me 0, so I have the square root of 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Oh, sorry. I need to plug in 0 in both of the x's. So if I plugged in 0 here, 0 minus 2, it gives me -2. So I have 2 from the square root of 4 equals 0 minus 2 gives me a negative 2. 2 equals negative 2 does not work. So that tells me that x equals 0 is an extraneous solution. Okay, now let's try negative 7. So if I did negative 7, 4 minus 11 times negative 7 equals negative 7 minus 2. Okay, negative 11 times negative 7 will give me 4 plus 77 square root. Negative 7 minus 2 is going to give me a negative 9. 4 plus 77 will give me the square root of 81. Square root of 81 is 9. And that does not equal negative 9, so this is also an extraneous solution. Okay, 2 extraneous solutions, so my actual answer is no solution because they are extraneous solutions, so they do not satisfy the equation. Okay. All right, looking at example 8, I have the square root of x plus 2 plus 4 equals x. So I need to get the square root of x plus 2 by itself by moving my x plus 4 to the other side. So I'm doing that by subtracting it. So I get the square root of x plus 2 equals x minus 4. I will need to square both sides to get rid of my square root. So I get x plus 2. I have 2x minus 4, so I'm going to have to write them out and multiply them. X plus 2, I have x times x gives me x squared. X times negative 4 gives me negative 4x. Negative 4 times x gives me negative 4x. And negative 4 times negative 4 gives me a positive 16. Combining like terms, I get x squared minus 8x plus 16. Now I'm going to move my left side to the right by subtracting x from both sides. And I'm also going to subtract 2. So that cancels out, and that gives me 0 on this side. I have x squared. Negative 8x minus x gives me a negative 9x. 16 minus 2 will give me 14. So now, because it is a quadratic, I need to find two numbers that multiply to give me 14, but add to give me negative 9. So my two signs will be, okay, I have a positive, okay, which means both my signs are going to be the same. They're both going to be negative because there's a negative right there. Okay, what multiplies to give me 14? 7 and 2. Negative 7 times negative 2 gives me a positive 14. Negative 7 plus negative 2 gives me a negative 9. So that works out. So I have two solutions here. X equals 7 and x equals 2. Now I need to plug both of these into the original equation. Okay, so if I'm plugging in 7, I'm doing 7 plus 2 plus 4 equals 7. 7 plus 2 is 9, plus 4 equals 7. Square root of 9 is 3 plus 4 equals 7. 3 plus 4 does equal 7, so 7 equals 7. That one works out. So x equals 7 is the solution. Now we need to plug in 2 to see if that one is a solution. Okay, if I'm plugging in 2, square root of 2 plus 2 plus 4 equals 2. 2 plus 2 is 4, so square root of 4 plus 4 equals 2. Square root of 4 is 2. 2 plus 4 is 6. That does not equal 2, so x equals 2 is an extraneous solution. So we have one solution of x equals 7, and we have an extraneous solution of x equals 2. Okay. Any questions on radical equations, please reach out. If you don't have any questions, go ahead and get started on the assignment and have a great day.